So good morning again. Here's the study for this morning. We have the logo of the Spiritist Federation of Florida because what you're going to watch or what we're going to share is very small part of the seminar that is happening next weekend in Deerfield Beach. As a reminder, we're closed next weekend because we are all going there for the seminar that begins at 11. So we decided to bring this study here to ignite your interest. The main topic of the seminar is going to be the efficacy of prayer. And so there are going to be 6 speakers. All of them are short lectures, such as the one that we are going to talk about today. And this is about prayer and healing. So our study, the source of the books that we used to support our thoughts today is the Spirit's book. We have here the Missionaries of the Light, which I used extensively. And in talking about prayer and in talking about healing, I highly recommend that this book be read. And of course the ones previous, so we can understand where Andrea is coming from, who's the Spirit author, and in Between Heaven and Earth and Evolution in Two Worlds, and the Mechanics of Mediumship, which is not noted here. So my first question for you guys: does prayer have the power to heal? Yes. Yes. Such an easy question. But do we truly understand how that happens? No. If we are sick and we pray and we don't receive the healing, does that mean that we haven't been healed?
No.
Not necessarily. Okay. Those are all really good answers. So we see today that science has done some extensive research about the aspect of prayer. And of course, David is going to talk about this a lot next week. And in showing the results of when we do intercessory prayers, meaning when we pray for someone else, and the results that they achieved, and also prayer for oneself, which is actually our focus today in talking about prayer and healing. Since he has some pretty awesome material that he's going to be exposing, we figured we would focus on the prayer of the self. Andrea Lewis, in sharing his own findings, see, he's kind of like a reporter of the beyond. I really love Andrea Lewis because he's really curious, and I would be there asking 1,000 questions as well, right? So he comes back to us and he brings many lessons and examples regarding the effect of prayer, how our mind has a very important role in the aspect of the wholesomeness, the wellness of the physical body, but also what happens on the other side. When the spirits, the good spirits, are able to connect with us when we open our channels. So we're going to find today, why is it that more and more people search for wellness, for the aspect of healing, aside from what science and technology has to offer? Why? Ever stop to question that? Why are so many studies conducted talking to us about the importance of spirituality?
Because what's out there no longer suffices. No
longer suffices. In the case of somebody who's going through an affliction, who are going through pain and suffering, when we have a loved one who's being exposed in the hospital to what the type of illnesses they're going through, and the doctor says, you have no chance of healing, there is no cure for what is going on with your body, how does that respond to how we feel? Sometimes you want to say to the doctor, who are you to say such a thing? So people search for alternate solutions. And in reality, I would like to say that it's the soul's own response in understanding that there is a lot more than just flesh and the physical body and what is going on at that specific moment. So what happens in the process of healing? Can we say that the process of healing has deeper roots than that of the flesh?
Yes.
Yes. Who's sick, the spirit or the physical body? Right? These are questions that Andrea Lewis is going to make us reflect upon. To open our reflection, in the book Missionaries of the Light, Andrea Lewis is looking at some cases of people who are obsessed. And they are demonstrating that they have some imbalances, some physical disharmony in their physical body, physiological disturbances. So he asks the following question to Alexander. He says, in view of the physiological disturbances that I was able to identify in the psychically ill, should I consider them as infirm in the body as well? It's an interesting question. If our minds are not well, if we are suffering through an obsession and we are showing already some kind of physiological disturbances, could it be said that we are also infirm in the physical body? It's an interesting question. And so Alexander responds, indeed, the imbalance of the mind can determine the general perturbation of the organic cells. The poisons of the soul determine the illnesses of the body. So when we read something like this, we see that we have just opened up an entire group discussion about this. True? And we don't have time to do this now, so you have to come to our Wednesday class. But regardless, he talks about the imbalance of the mind having some kind of disturbances in our physical body. So the question is, would prayer help in reestablishing balance of the mind by offering positive resources, going as far as altering our physical cells? That's basically the question that we have here, because we're talking about prayer and healing. And if our mind is the one that is determining the kind of poison that will determine the illnesses of the physical body, what tools do we have to be able to reestablish harmony in our physical being? So it's interesting questions that we have here. Let us understand a little bit about prayer. What is prayer? Terry. Sorry, David, go ahead.
Attention to God.
What was it?
Attention.
Attention. Wow, I love that. What else? Go ahead, Terry. I know you got an answer for me.
Well, I would say that prayer is our outward expression towards God.
Our outward expression towards God. Okay. Veronica.
Which consists of thanks. So
gratitude, you thank.
Right. Request.
Request, okay.
And what's that? Gratitude.
Worship is fine as well.
Praise.
Praising.
Praising and
okay.
Request and what was the first one?
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay. Veronica, and then we'll go on.
Connecting with your inner self.
Connecting with your inner self. Here's, in the mechanics of mediumship, Andrea Lewis will talk to us about the importance of prayer before he answers what prayer is. He says, in all the moments of the soul, incarnate or discarnate, whether at rest or active, we can observe the conditioned reflex or action independent of the will that immediately follows an external stimulus at the base of the operation of the mind for purposes of this or that endeavor. Okay, so here he's talking about some kind of conditioned reflex that is independent of the will that will actually follow some kind of external stimulus. He says, prayer is always the positive sublime reflex of the spirit in any situation because it commands the spirit to emit the purest elements at its disposal. I thought he was going to give us some like ooey gooey type of answer, but he's pretty logical, straightforward, to the point about prayer being this positive reflex of the spirit in any situation because it commands the spirit to emit pure elements or rays, if we want to talk this way. So he will say that in reality, as far as our physical wellness is concerned, we have many ways to reach wellness. Here's what he says. Concerning the health and maintenance of the physical body and the acquisition of knowledge, human beings can draw upon the advices of doctors, nutritionists, teachers, and various guides. Therefore, it is also natural for them to make use of prayer to gather inspiration they need to attune themselves to higher directives. Why is this important for us to know? Here he continues. In the energy circuit established by prayer, our soul not only predisposes itself to regenerate the equilibrium or harmony or balance, if we want to talk about it, of corrupted or worn out physical cells through the influx of the renewing energies it spontaneously incorporates, assimilating rays from the highest life which it addresses, but also reflecting the enlightened suggestions of the high order discarnate intelligence with whom it engages. So here we see, why is it interesting for us to see that? Yes, we can look at doctors, we can look at nutritionists, we can look at teachers, we can go through every kind of resources that we have to achieve the physical well-being, but they throw in there the aspect of prayer and spirituality, talking to the fact that we are able to regenerate the harmony of corrupted physical cells. The power of the mind is pretty important in the aspect of healing here. So this is one more resource. There is a magazine, the Spiritist magazine, and one of the editions is called Why America Needs Spirituality. And the entire magazine talks about the importance of prayer, of meditation, of searching for a higher type of, what's the word that I'm looking for? State of mind where we are able to work on the self in trying to achieve the healing as well. And so Andrea Lewis explains that this is really important for us to know, because as much as we receive the friendly suggestions of the higher order discarnate intelligences, in reality we also receive other type of suggestions. True? Come on, we know this is true. Where am I going with this? Is our physical visible realm aside from the invisible? Or is there a constant interaction between the two? We are here temporary, incarnate in a physical body, having a physical experience, but we are immortal spirits. We all agree with that so far. In Spiritism, that's what we learn. But we know that we are in constant exchange with the invisible plane in a negative or positive way. What we're talking about this is because we need to consider that, as Andrea Lewis points out, we live in the current world in a mental jungle. When people say it's a jungle out there, it's no joke. It's a mental jungle. We are exposed to waves, positive and negative. We are bombarded with negative vibrations, to the point where they say we reach exhaustion, physical exhaustion and irritability. All of a sudden you are irritated and you have no idea why. Ever get that? And you feel, my God, I'm so tired, I'm irritated, I don't know what's going on, I feel drawn out. I feel drawn out. So what Andrea Lewis is saying is that we are bombarded with the kind of mental matter that comes from both planes of life. The invisible, spirits that are in distress and who find an opening, who are in tune with the way we feel and we think, and also even sometimes in our household. A couple, for instance. When we talk about maintaining harmony at home through the use of the gospel at home, we're talking about much more than forming a barrier so that distressed spirits are not able to enter our home. We're talking about harmony within the family, where we maintain a healthy mind as to not affect those that we live with, and vice versa. So the responsibility is really great. As soon as we choose to envelop ourselves and protect ourselves from this bombarding of negative thoughts and waves, through the means of prayer, we are able to connect with higher and more healthy entities. And this is what we're talking about here. When we talk about illnesses, we are told that the posture of prayer, using the resource of prayer, should be much more than asking for well-being, which is one of the aspects is really interesting that Terry talked about. It's not just asking for healing. In reality, they tell us that it's important that we ask to understand the divine will. Why am I going through this? So instead of just asking for healing, we should be asking for an opportunity to understand why we are going through that specific imbalance. Where did it come from? We just saw a case of a lady who was, her granddaughter was 24. Her granddaughter was a PE instructor. She had never smoked, done drugs, or drank. And she was diagnosed with over 100 tumors in her body. And she discarnated. Where did that come from? How do we understand what happened to her? For the materialist, for those who have no vision of a future life or previous existences, it seems to be a great injustice, doesn't it? People living to the time where they're 98, filled with illnesses, and somebody so young who has never done anything to damage her physical body. Where did that come from? We'll talk about questions and answers at the end if you don't mind. Otherwise, I'm going to open up too much. So, in order to answer that question, we go back to the source. We talk about the perispirit. A lot of us have already been exposed to what the perispirit is. And Andrea Lewis Allan Kardec will tell us that understanding and knowing about the perispirit is the key to a host of problems that have until now been unexplainable. What is the perispirit? Here we are. Here's the incarnate being, our spirit, our perispirit, which is a semi-material body, and our physical body here. So when we incarnate, here's what we're composed of. When we discarnate, the little guy on the right leaves, because it's just a clothing, a vestment, the vessel, the vehicle that we use for progress, of which we have to respect and take care of. And the other two, of course, it's us. We leave with it. The impressions, everything that we do in our incarnate life gets stored, reflected upon the perispirit, and vice versa. The perispirit molds the physical body. When the spirit is about to reincarnate, when the spirit is united to the physical body in formation and reality, the perispirit is the one there, joining molecule by molecule. And it's going to determine many factors in our lives as well. So when we see somebody who's so young, going through that kind of illnesses where there is no healing, we have to question ourselves. First, there was healing. And second, it might be something that was brought in her perispirit that found its way molded into the physical body, responding to the law of cause and effect. It's not punishment. And that's where many people get confused. If a person doesn't receive the healing of the physical body, it doesn't mean that she's receiving the healing of her soul. She is reharmonizing, finding, reestablishing equilibrium through the means of reincarnation. When we start looking at people going through illnesses, severe illnesses like that, life seems to make a lot more sense, doesn't it? It seems to be a lot more just that somebody requests for that opportunity to reincarnate and make amends for past mistakes. And when we start looking at our physical body as a divine investment from the above, we start paying attention to it and treating it the way it deserves. Exercising is great. Eating right is wonderful. But paying attention to how we think and how we feel is vital. Illnesses of all sorts come from the way we feel and think. Things left unsaid, unforgiving actions. Many cancers derive from feeling inside of anger that are not worked through. So when we talk about the body, we're talking about a lot more than just this physical flesh. And this is what we need to start paying attention to. Now, understanding that we are immortal spirits, temporarily inhabiting this flesh here, we need to understand that our perispirit, this semi-material body, is much more than this fuzzy, man-shaped type of thing. And Andrea Lewis will tell us that our physical body is in reality a vague shadow of our perispirit. Just as the physical body can ingest poisonous foods that intoxicate its tissues, The perispiritual body can also absorb degenerative elements that corrode its energy centers with repercussions on the material cells. So we are given a body, and we might have some kind of imbalances that we bring from before, but how much damage do we physically do here and now? Right now, what are we doing to our physical body that is in reality allowing our perispirit to absorb this kind of degenerative elements, corroding our energy centers, having repercussions on our material or physical cells? When we talk about prayer, what are we doing? If our mind hasn't learned how to discipline itself, it's going to be really hard for the body to reach wholesomeness, wellness. If we nourish it with this harmonizing thoughts, ideals, feelings, we are going to become poisoned with the mental emissions. It's no longer about what is out there, it's about what we do ourselves to our physical bodies that we need to understand. So they tell us that sometimes we absorb this poisonous mental emanations from the entities that are around us, but we are at fault. Because if we chose differently, if we chose to cultivate prayer, edifying thoughts, edifying readings, the things that we read, we wouldn't be exposed to such poisonous mental states as well. So Andrea Lewis will tell us that this happens in receiving this kind of poisonous thoughts because particularly when the interested parties do not have a prayer life, the beneficial influence of which can annul many ills is in reality the aspect. If we were just able to cultivate prayer, we would be able to annul many of the ills that we find in our physical body. So we see here that we are able to do that. There is a story in the book Missionaries of the Light of a woman who goes to the Spiritist Center. Now we're talking about the Spiritist Center because that's where we are. But the same is going to apply for anybody who has any kind of active effort in trying to be a good person. So they could go to a Buddhist center, they could go to a Catholic church, they could be anywhere where they're trying to establish a connection with the highest divine order. So she enters the Spiritist Center, and the spirit guides are showing Andrea Lewis and others who are paying attention about her altered state of her physical body. So they say, this morning, she had a bad argument with her husband, and she entered a serious state of inner disharmony. The small cloud surrounding her vital organ represents fulminating mental matter. Mental matter, as in something that is palpable. The permanence of such residues in her heart could cause a dangerous illness. Let's help her. Wow. So sometimes we have arguments and we feel that everything is okay. Our heartbeat goes, right? We get red, we get flushed, sometimes we cry, we alter our voices, we scream. What is all of this doing to us? But she is actually making an active effort to try to become better. She goes to the Spiritist Center and they say, let's help her. Now Andrea Lewis says that he watches as Anikleto, who is the spirit guide, assumes a position of giving her the healing passes, the laying of hands. Right during the public lecture, by the way. It's not in the passes room. Healing sometimes starts right here. And he assumes a position where he starts working on her head and then towards the area of her heart, and that mental matter starts to diminish it. So Andrea Lewis asks, what could have happened to her if she didn't go looking for assistance? So they say that in reality, at the Spiritist Center, they say that in reality, the kind of assistance of what he saw is available to anyone who is trying to cultivate prayer, who is trying to reach for edifying thoughts. Even if she wasn't at the Spiritist Center, she would have received assistance being in an active position of trying to reach these higher thoughts. There are other cases that I'm not going to talk about, such as the case of the man that they call the case of the 10 times. This gentleman had received assistance 10 times in the Spiritist Center in his gastric area. But because of his own conduct of not modifying the way that he was acting with anger, passions of all sorts, they decided that he needed to have a little time out and feel the consequences in the physical body, because he wasn't assimilating the assistance that he was receiving. So witnessing what's going on, he says, "Forgive me for asking, but in the case the sister had not received assistance at the Spiritist Center, how would she have dealt with the hidden illness? Would she be helpless? Not in the least. There are veritable legions of workers in our specialty assisting individuals who, through higher aspirations, search the right pathway in religious institutions of all hues, as we have said. Persons who are mentally and viscerally living the religion that is teaching them the path of good are involved in an intense and renewed activity." So I was visiting a family member at the hospital for about 2 weeks consecutively, and every time I pulled on the driveway and I was walking towards the building, I would look at the hospital as this place that is filled with people of all sorts of illnesses. And I felt such comfort knowing that that place is also a place where a lot of assistance was being received. People with faith going through their own process of healing. Even in terminally ill cases, they're going through their own process of healing of the soul. And I felt such gratitude. I thought it was such a beautiful place, deserving of respect. I went as far as thinking this is a gateway where spirits discarnate and go back to their spiritual realm, and they incarnate. It's deserving of respect. And we find that as creatures of God, children of God, we are not left at the mercy of an illness. In reality, the assistance is so great that should we just even try to mentally live according to what we are learning, the assistance is even greater because we are able to assimilate them. It's not that we are not receiving assistance, we are. But the greater our effort in trying to be involved in establishing renewed activity in our lives, the greater the presence we're going to feel of the good spirits as well. Concerning this, does it mean that we are always going to receive the healing for our illnesses? Why is it that prayer is able to liberate some people from what they're going through and others are not? So in the book Between Heaven and Earth, Andrea Lewis talks about some people that are going to the beach to receive... Oh, this is gonna die. Hold on, guys. Sorry, I apologize. There we go. Some people are going to the beach to receive healing while they are asleep. The good spirits come to them and they take them away to receive healing at the beach or some spiritist centers. It's a really interesting chapter. It's the book Between Heaven and Earth. And so Andrea Lewis witnesses a cancer patient on the beach, laying on her back, receiving healing passes. So of course Andrea Lewis is a little bit curious and he says, "What's going on?" He says, "Well, she is somebody who came from the colony No Solar. And she's here to receive assistance for her cancer. She has been taken for her physical vehicle by the means of hypnosis in order to receive the proper assistance." So Andrea Lewis says, can the type of treatment halt the imbalance of organic cell? Can the patient be healed? So the instructor smiled and says, when spirit friends provide assistance that affects the subtle tissues of the soul, it is possible to accomplish wonders when the person is partially disengaged from the body, because they're acting on the perispiritual body. The perispiritual centers, we can sometimes cause profound changes in patients' health, changes that gradually show up in the somatic body. If the perispirit is connected to the physical body, molecule by molecule, it starts making sense, doesn't it? The re-establishing energies that are going to reflect on the physical body. Consequently, serious illnesses can be cured and striking renewals can be accomplished, especially when we find the working of prayers in the mind enriched by transforming faith. facilitating our intervention by constructive passivity in the area where we must do our work. The job of assistance can accomplish veritable miracles. The physical body is maintained by the spirit body, the perispirit, and adjusts itself to its form. In this way, our influence on the body is crucial for the physical body, which the mind uses to express itself. Okay, but this lady is not going to be healed. She's not going to receive the cure. And Andrea Lewis talks to him and he says, why isn't she going to receive the healing if this is true? To which the minister responds, what we do is subject to the law that governs us, the law of cause and effect. Regarding the sister's problem, help from our plane can only provide her comfort. Because of the trial she must endure, the disease has spread too far. Is it unjust? No. She's receiving assistance. He says, so it means that she can only resign herself to a peaceful death, is what Andrea Lewis asks. And they answer, yes. After receiving this assistance, she awakens more serene. She awakes in more acceptance of the fact that she will discarnate. And she comforts the family members. How many times have we seen that happening? Our family members being stronger than we are. Because they are receiving the assistance while they are asleep. He goes on to say, the healing that takes place is of the physical body? No, is of the soul. How much learning happens during the moment of an illness? Humility takes place. Reflection. Relationships that have gone wrong sometimes find the healing power of forgiveness. There is so much healing going on that if the materialist was able to just think of an alternate view, that maybe life goes on, and that person enduring that physical illness is more than just the flesh, that she's much more special than all of that, he would realize that there is healing going on. We need to move, change, modify the way we look at terminal illnesses. And if we go through it ourselves, what are we doing to provide healing for our souls? And so we go seeing here what Andrea Lewis talks about in the book, Evolution in Two Worlds. He says, if the disease experienced in the somatic body was long and difficult, blessed purifications will have taken place for the soul by the means of opportunity for self-examination, during which afflictions born with patience change its sensations and recast its ideas. So Allan Kardec, interested in the question about minimizing the kind of trials that we go through in life, because planet Earth is a big hospital, and there are all sorts of illnesses, not just the physical illnesses, but that of the mind and the soul. Allan Kardec asked, can the prayers we offer for ourselves modify the nature of our trials and change their course? And the good spirits answer, your trials are in God's hands, and there are those that must be endured to the very end. However, God always takes resignation into account. Prayer attracts good spirits who give you strength to courageously endure your trials. Thus, they seem less difficult to you. As we have already stated, prayer is never useless when offered rightly, because it provides strength. Heaven helps those who help themselves. You know this. So when we pray, we will receive uplifting ideas. We will be able to reestablish harmony within so that we can endure the trials. Sometimes minimizing to the point where you feel you're in denial. Ever happened to anybody? You feel, am I in denial? The other day I was talking to a friend of mine about this, going through a difficult situation now, and she said, no, that's called faith. When it seems like you're in denial and you're not, you have such security in God. You have such a faithful heart, meaning as in having faith, that anything that comes in this temporary state that we find ourselves in, is seen as one more step of progress for the Spirit. You have seen that prayer works in the material realm is more important than you can imagine. There is no prayer that doesn't receive an answer. Prayer, the daughter of love, is not only supplication. It is communion between the Creator and His creatures, thus comprising the most powerful magnetic influx known. I thought this paragraph by Alexander to be so profound. It talks about the communion, the connection between us and God. And there is no greater feeling of comfort. When we're trying to establish healing, if we find that the physical healing is impossible, we must believe in the healing of the soul. Because we are immortal. We don't take our flesh with us. We take our soul. Our perispirit is purifying itself. And that's what we take into consideration as true spiritists. To finish, we're going to close with a message received by the medium Valdo Vieira, in which it says, by Andrea, if you desire to cure someone or yourself, you must begin to pray for healing. Prayer is light in darkness where sicknesses establish itself. Sow the seeds of joy. Good cheer is medicine for the feelings. Avoid impatience. All irritation is a magnetic disturbance with unforeseeable consequences. Do not find faults. Criticism tears up the harmony of life. Remain confident. Doubt gives forth elements of death. Be kind. Harsh words disorganizes any task. Help others. Benevolence attracts cooperation. Do not cultivate enemies. Aversion is a calamity in the field of the soul. Do not be offended with the infirmities of others. Look what he said. Do not be offended with the infirmities of others. The body is the holy instrument of the soul. The infirmities that sometimes we carry, as when somebody fights with us, create calumnies against us, they're infirm. When we start looking at people that way, we start having more compassion. Don't we feel compassion when we see somebody sick in the hospital? This is the way we should look at each other to cultivate love for one another. Look to a sick person as if it were yourself. The golden rule, doing unto others as we would wish them to do unto us. All spiritual healing has its roots in the blessings of love. It's about time that we start acting as the immortal spirits that we are, understanding that we need to respect our physical body, that there is a lot more in reaching wellness and physical healing. It's not just the flesh, eating healthy, looking for doctors, that's all good and we should do that, but it's also trying to maintain a healthy mind. There is an author, I apologize for not remember, he was talking about cancer. He said cancer is just a word. We have to maintain our minds healthy in the process of healing. And we can't do that without using the resource of prayer in the power of healing. So with that, I will close our study.